Well, that was 90 minutes we'll never get back. Truly a difficult night, I think, for President Trump. Kamala Harris accomplished, I believe, what she needed to accomplish, which was just essentially having a pulse, right? Showing that she is at least capable of giving an answer, even if it wasn't ever a particularly competent one, or to any question that was actually asked of her. Whereas, we needed to see Donald Trump take on, it was obviously horribly moderated, perhaps the worst moderated debate in history, but we needed to see that 2016 magic when Anderson Cooper tried to pull that same sort of stunt on Donald Trump in one of his debates with Hillary Clinton, and Trump took on all comers. Here, he was fact-checked, maybe on 50% of the questions that he was asked. He never once...
Even when they lied, and they lied explicitly.
Openly lied. He never once challenged them. On the whole, I think a pretty difficult night.
So here's my take on this particular debate. We're going to talk about it a lot today. We'll talk about it a lot tomorrow. And a week from now, it's not going to matter at all. And the reason it's not going to matter at all is because nothing fundamentally changed here. The people of America still don't know Kamala Harris. Donald Trump has not done his job in making sure that the people of America actually know anything about her positions. 30% of Americans say they don't know anything about her positions, and they still don't know anything about her positions because the moderators never pressed her on any of her positions. And Donald Trump didn't either. On Donald Trump's side of the aisle, Donald Trump did not perform tonight. He didn't do an amazing job calling her on her BS. The best thing he said all night was his closing statement, which is what he should have opened with. He closed with, "Why didn't you do it?" That should have been the very first thing he said in the debate. And the fact that that wasn't what he said right off the top was a mistake. He was also incredibly distractible tonight. He took the bait on nearly every question. Every time she said something that you knew was going to get his goat, he just let it happen. So, for example, when she gave him the bait on his crowd sizes, on people are leaving your crowds, they're leaving your rallies, he couldn't resist going after her about the crowd size, about January 6th, about the election of 2020. These are all distractions. The only thing that mattered tonight for Donald Trump was defining her, and he did not define her, which means that I still check the calendar. We still have a couple months till the election. She is going to have to be defined. The big takeaway from this is not going to be about Trump, who still remains Trump. And it's really not going to be about Harris, who performed the best I think it's possible for Kamala Harris to perform, which is to say she was fairly obnoxious. She lied a lot. She said a lot of things that were untrue. She was never called on any of that. The big takeaway is going to be the continued destruction of the legacy media on behalf of the Democratic Party. The legacy media have decided, full scale, they are now apparatchiks of the Democratic Party. They are so far up Kamala Harris's ass that they're doing active colonoscopies with their eyeballs. It's unbelievable watching David Muir ask questions to Donald Trump like, "Why are you so bad and orange and mean?" And then turning to Kamala Harris and saying, "And why is he so bad and orange and mean?" It's absolutely insipid and totally insane. The media tonight were beyond the worst expectations that I had for them. I thought that they were going to do like a baseline creditable job because CNN did. Jake Tapper and Dana Bash, they actually did that in the last debate. They actually asked questions and let people answer them. David Muir became an active participant in this debate. Lindsey Davis became an active participant in the debate. And then they never once fact-checked Kamala Harris, who lied over and over and over. She lied. She said, for example, that Donald Trump was a backroad Project 2025. A lie. She said that Donald Trump said there were very fine people on both sides of the Charlottesville riots, including the neo-Nazis. That is a lie. It's been debunked repeatedly. They did not say that that was a lie. She said that he had said that he was going to unleash a bloodbath on the country if he lost. That's a full-scale lie. They never fact-checked a single thing that she did the entire night. And actually, that helps Trump. And it helps Trump for a very simple reason. If you are a Trump fan, and if you think that Trump didn't actually perform unbelievably well tonight, which I think is true, I don't think he did an amazing job tonight, the easy out is, yeah, because the media were targeting him. And if you're a moderate watching this, I think that it had to be apparent, even to moderates, even to independents, the media want Kamala Harris elected. They're doing their best to make sure that Kamala Harris is elected. So tomorrow, we'll revert right back to where we were before this debate. We'll revert right back to Kamala Harris is vibes, and she is joy, and she is policy vagary, and she'll never answer another question. She's going to try and get all the way from here to the election without ever answering another question. There will be no more debates. She's going to declare that she won. The media will declare that she won and that Trump lost. Trump really has no interest in doing another debate because I frankly don't think that it's in his interest to do another debate at this point. So that was the last presidential debate of this election cycle. The bottom line is that when all is said and done, it seems like a lot of this is baked into the cake. And in the moment, it's uncomfortable because it was such an opportunity. You know, if you're like me and you're sitting there, you're like leaping out of your seat. Why won't he just say it? Why won't he just say it? It's very frustrating. She will say something about how race shouldn't divide us. And you're sitting there going, what the actual living, like you are a case in point of a person who divides based on race. It's what you do for a living. It's how you became vice president of the United States. She will say things about Afghanistan. They'll ask her, about whether she has any regrets. And she'll say no. And instead of him coming back and saying, don't you regret the 13 dead American soldiers whose families you ignored? You're just waiting for him to take the opening. But the problem was that he had been set off earlier in the debate. He was incredibly distractible. He was following every squirrel down every particular rabbit hole. Again, the best moment I thought of the debate for Donald Trump was that closing statement where he finally laid out the big question. If you say you have all these big plans, why don't you do any of those things? But in the final analysis, I can be pissed at the media. I can feel discomfort with how the debate went tonight. This is still a tight race. It's not going to become a not tight race because of this particular debate, which means that tomorrow Donald Trump better get up and he better decide that he's going to do for the rest of the campaign the thing he didn't do tonight, define her positions. It can't just let... J.D. Vance, by the way, is doing an excellent job of this. J.D.'s doing a great job of this. Trump needs to do it. He needs to actually do it. If he does that, he can still win the race, and he still has the upper hand. But this debate was I'll say it was a blown opportunity at the very least.
I think that part of it is, I seriously agree with you. I think the two things that Trump did accomplish was he got ganged up on, which obviously he didn't do, but I think that was really important. I think we do not see how far the media has fallen in the eyes of the American public. The fact that after that DNC, that ecstatic, loving, that love fest of a DNC, Kamala Harris didn't get a bump, is telling us something about what the American public is thinking about the media. They are watching the media. They get it. They've seen it. All the stuff we all have been talking about all these years. I think that the people whose minds are open now can see it. So that was good for Trump. I agree that Trump could have ended her. She was better, way better prepared than she's ever been, but only as well prepared as I thought she was going to be. I thought she did the job that she had to do, and he could have ended her, and that's disappointing. But he didn't attack her personally, and he did say, I don't agree that, look, when he goes off the line and he chases the squirrel, and he does it when his ego gets involved, it's always really frustrating because you want him to stick to his script. But he didn't do it throughout the debate. And for the first 30 minutes, I say, which is the most important part of any debate, he actually stayed on track and said the things that he had to say. They were not as powerful as they would have been had you been saying them. They weren't as powerful as they would have been with somebody who could keep from rambling as much as he does. He was his usual self, but a little better. That's what I would say about Donald Trump. And that's frustrating because it would have been great if he had actually done what we wanted him to do. I think you're right that this is not going to change the debate because of the bad behavior of ABC and because the people see this. But, I wish he'd ended her too. But at the same time, I think that if I had to say over the time what we've got left, what the impression is going to be, it's that the media can't be trusted and she is running a media campaign, a completely constructed campaign. I don't think that's going to get us where we need to go. But I think it's going to be exactly as you say. We're going to stay on track where we are now. I think Trump's leading. I think he's leading more than the polls say. Remember, their polls are better than our polls, the ones that we see. And I think he's leading more than they say. And I think he's got a serious chance. This certainly did not destroy that in any way.
Sorry, go ahead, Matt.
Yeah, I'll just say that I think the good thing for Trump is that there was not a meltdown moment. There wasn't one thing that'll get clipped. I mean, a lot of things will get clipped, but he didn't. It was a poor performance, but there was not one iconic meltdown moment for him. Kamala, I agree with what's been said so far. I think she did as well as we could possibly expect her to do. She also didn't have a great moment. I mean, the media will try to manufacture a moment out of it. She didn't have one. Well, really, she had one. The moment of the debate, if there was one, I think, was when she baited him on the rallies and when she said that they leave the rallies early because they're bored. Obviously, they plan to say that for only one reason, not because that part is compelling to the voters. We don't care about that. If Trump's rallies are boring or not, we don't care. But she knew that Trump just cannot stand that you're getting him right where it hurts the most. The idea that his rallies are boring is just, you are stabbing him right in the gut with that. And I think he responded to that by rambling and getting very defensive. And from my read of it, I think he never quite recovered from that. He was more visibly angry throughout the whole rest of the debate. His tone was angrier. He was a little bit off kilter. I don't think he ever got quite back to it. But it was kind of spread out throughout the debate, so it doesn't. So I think that because there's not the one moment that will just be repeated, it wasn't like with Biden when there was the couple of moments of him not being able to speak.
Drooling.
That did happen. It means that probably 2-3 days from now, nobody's talking about this debate. And you could say that even though Trump performed relatively poorly, if no one's talking about it 3 days from now, then it's kind of a tie effectively.
Yeah.
And does a tie go to Trump on this one if he's sort of in the lead?
Yeah.
That was
Thank God she didn't attack his golf scores.
Yeah, of course, right. That'd be the rest of the night. That was the moment when it shifted. So I would say Trump won pretty decisively the first 20, maybe 25 minutes. She was visibly nervous. Her voice was shaking. Physically, she might have been shaking. She was repeating rote answers that had nothing to do with the question and were obnoxiously irrelevant to the question. So he was winning. She shook him up. That was when I felt it was gracious of the moderators to allow her to try to debate for the first 20 minutes. And then they decided, no, we're going to step in. And it was more egregious than Candy Crowley in 2012. It was the most egregious I've ever seen. A complete disgrace for David Muir and that other lady.
Lindsay Davis, yeah.
Lindsay Davis.
What a clown show.
A complete disgrace. He won the closing statement. That was a very strong closing statement. Hers was fine, but it was...
Are you okay?
Are you okay?
By the way, I have a question. Do you want that from your government? Do you want your government coming to me like, are you okay? How about not when you're talking to me, I'm not. No. Go away.
The biggest takeaway for me, and somehow it had not occurred to me until that moment when she shook him up on the crowd sizes, Kamala Harris's superpower is that she's quite good at manipulating men. And I don't mean that as a cheap shot or a provocation. She started her political career by manipulating a married man, Willie Brown, in San Francisco. Much has been said about that. That's how she got her start. She became vice president. She couldn't win one delegate in the 2020 primary, but she became president because she baited Joe Biden on that debate stage. She called him a racist. She accused him of being the reason she wouldn't be allowed to be bused to school. And she put him in a position where he had to pick a black woman for VP, and she was the only one that he could have picked. And then she laid out that trap for Trump with the question about crowd sizes. She is not great at retail. She's not good at speaking to people. She doesn't know a damn thing about policy. She doesn't have a platform. But she's pretty good at manipulating individual men. And especially when she was backed up with the full weight of ABC News, it allowed her to make up for her deficiencies and land basically at a draw.
We're so good, so easy to manipulate.
That's right.
I think that it would be true that a tie, I think it is true that a tie goes to the person who's ahead. I'm not sure that I agree that Donald Trump is ahead. I don't think that the polls have yet reflected that Donald Trump is ahead, although certainly her momentum has abated and he has the opportunity, but he isn't taking the opportunity. And I think the thing I disagree with you the most about, Drew, is this idea that everyone sees through the media. I think Gallup released a poll 2 weeks ago that said Democrat trust in the media is actually precipitously rising.
I'm talking about the people who are going to decide the election.
Yeah, well, the people who are going to decide the election are not Republicans.
No, they're independents.
Yes.
Yeah.
And the question is also going to be how many Democrats show up. So I think the big advantage that Trump had against Biden is that Democrats weren't showing up to the polls, right? They were so depressed that they weren't going to show up. They're not going to have a turnout problem. I think that after the performance that she gave tonight, Democrats are in a good mood. You can see they're in a good mood. They're going to be in a good mood. You're going to get a lot more vibes. It's going to be vibes up the wazoo for the next couple of weeks. And this is where at a certain point, it becomes almost criminal politically to miss as many opportunities as President Trump is currently missing.
Yes.
It is his job not to miss the opportunities. And listen, we got 2 months to go. Maybe he starts hitting the opportunities. That's the thing you want. But since Biden was swapped out for the brand new coat of paint on the broken up jalopy masquerading as a Lamborghini, since that happened, he has not found his footing in terms of actually doing his job, which is to define her in the mind of the American public. And he had every opportunity to do that tonight, and he didn't take any of them. At the very beginning, the very first question, right out the gate for her was, are you better off economically than you were 4 years ago? Now, his answer, he should not even listen to her answer. He should not even listen. He should, as soon as they come back to him, as soon as he realizes what she's doing, which is she's now going to avoid the question, which she did, just start wandering all over the landscape in search of an idea for the next 2 minutes. As soon as they came back to him, he should have said, you know what I noticed? I noticed you didn't answer that very simple question because it has a very simple answer. Of course you're not better off than you were 4 years ago. Yeah. You've done a terrible job. Joe Biden has done a terrible job. You're the current vice president of the United States. And then he should have dumped in what he said at the end. You have all these big plans to change the country. Where are you? Why don't you go do them right now? I noticed you've done none of them. Right? I mean, in the first 5 minutes, this debate could have been over. And that's the part that really galls me. That's part that sticks in my craw.
I have to interrupt you here because I owe our sponsors to tell people about owing things. More than 3/4 of Americans have some kind of debt. Things like credit cards, personal loans, medical bills. It's a terrible feeling. But you know what? Being in debt doesn't make you a bad person. You're already a bad person, but now you're in debt up to your wazoo. It's easy to get into debt, but sometimes it feels impossible to get out. Well, I'm here to tell you that it is possible and that PDS Debt is here to help. Everyone's story is different, so PDS Debt is going to look at your financial situation and tailor a plan that's going to work for you. Their free debt analysis will get you started with zero hassle. The most important thing about paying off debt is finding the way that works for you. You know, I know how it feels to owe someone. A lot of people don't know this, but when I first started here at Daily Wire, Jeremy told me I owed him my soul. Luckily, I was able to negotiate, so I paid off in little bits of my soul over the years. And, of course, my firstborn son. If you want your debt negotiated, check out PDS Debt today to reduce and manage your debt. Everyone with $10,000 or more in eligible debt qualifies, and there's no minimum credit score required. Bad and fair credit accepted. Anyone with credit cards, loans, collections, or medical bills can stop waiting and start saving. Get a free debt analysis right now at pdsdebt.com/backstage. It only takes 30 seconds. That's pdsdebt.com/backstage, pdsdebt.com/backstage.
You know, Donald Trump missed a lot of opportunities. He's been missing the opportunity to define Kamala Harris since she became her party's nominee. He missed a lot of opportunities tonight, I think, as you've described, to clock her. But the biggest missed opportunity of the night had nothing to do with Kamala Harris. He missed the opportunity to run against the media. They fact-checked him and fact-checked him and fact-checked him. They fact-checked him when he was right. They didn't fact-check her when she would outright lie. She wasn't fact-checked, I believe. She was not fact-checked a single time during the debate. And you can say, well, people see that. But only people who are really plugged in, really paying attention, watching the debate all the way through, see those things. You have to tell people. You know, the biggest lie told, I think, in the history of Hollywood was told by the dearly departed James Earl Jones. If you build it, they will come. He didn't actually say it. It was the
scriptwriter.
It was the scriptwriter. That's a lie. You have to tell people about it before they will come. And Donald Trump needed to, every single time that he was interrupted or fact-checked or corrected or essentially debated by the moderators, he needed to point that fact out because you need those sound bites. You need to empower your team to be able to make the montage to show again and again and again what's happening. I think that's the biggest missed opportunity of the night. It's not the opportunity to frame Kamala, although that is a miss. It's the opportunity to frame who his actual opponent is. You know, which is
no. This is absolutely true. And one of the things about Trump that's different is he's being a little bit more restrained. That has its good side, but the bad side is the press is his enemy and the enemy of the people. And he should be saying it. Yeah.
Somebody obviously told him within the campaign,
yes,
don't hit the press, because it's his MO to hit the press. I don't want to gloss over, though, the lie that they told. That they didn't fact check, all sorts of lies from Kamala.
That's right.
But when Trump pointed out that there are prominent Democrats, and there are states in this country where babies are killed after birth, and Lindsey Davis came out and said, that is not true. There is no state where this is happening. Not only is that a lie, but Kamala Harris's own running mate, Tim Walsh, repealed protections for babies who survive abortions in the state of Minnesota.
Which, by the way, survives abortion in this instance means are born.
Are born.
Right.
So they try to kill the baby is born. There are legal protections in some states that say if the baby is born, you have to provide medical care as you would to any other human being. And Tim Walsh, within the last 2 years, repealed those legal protections. That is Kamala's own running mate. It is the most egregious lie. It blows Candy Crowley 2012 out.
But you know how they get around that, though, because in that case, what they do is they put the baby to the side and leave the baby to just die. They don't directly kill the baby, and so that's like the game they're playing. Well, if you just leave a child to die, you're not killing him. Which Trump, I mean, it would be a great thing to point out. I will say that on the abortion question, Trump, I thought, had one really great moment, and it was actually one of the best moments I've ever seen from a Republican presidential candidate.
I agree.
Because I've never seen a Republican. I've been screaming forever. I want some Republican in a debate to do this. It's never happened once that I can remember, and Trump did it. He turned to her and said, "Okay, we've talked about the extreme cases. Would you support abortion at 7 months?"
Totally agree. Thought it was
yes
great,
or no?
great
And
moment.
she didn't answer it. And she pivoted back to him. So he should have stayed there for longer, but that was a brilliant moment, and that's exactly what Republicans should be doing on this issue.
I think in our disappointment that he didn't just steamroller as she well deserved, I think we did miss a bunch of moments like that. That was the best. That was definitely the best. Me too, I've always waited for somebody to say, oh, what's the date when you're ready to stop? But he did a lot of good things on immigration. He did a lot of good things on the economy. You know, he wasn't bad. It was just that you sit here and you can see from the outside that a guy with real debate skills, which he has never had, could have just swept her away. And so you're disappointed, but you also, in being disappointed, you miss some of the good things he really did do.
In a sort of weird way, there's what you feel right after you watch the debate, and then there's what you feel in the 24 hours after the debate.
Yes,
because it's almost two separate processes now.
Yes.
The internet has changed the way that people watch debates. So I'll be curious to see who watched this thing, soup to nuts, the way that we just did. When you watch the whole thing, the reason that those things disappear is because he will get in the punch, but it's in the middle of a long, rambling thing about a bunch of other things. Right? The thing you said is he actually said it clearly and concisely. That's, I think, one of the most clear, concise moments he had the entire debate. But he would throw a punch, and for a moment you'd be like, that's a good punch. But it was in the middle of kind of mush. And so because it's very hard to listen to Charlie Brown's teacher, going at you, that, like, when he finally throws the punch, sometimes it gets lost in translation. However, this is what the internet is made for. So half the stuff that he says that's sort of memeable will be memed within an hour. Yeah. And so when we look at the internet 2 hours from now, there's going to be a bunch of moments where you're like, oh, I forgot that Donald Trump said that. I didn't really remember him saying that. Because again, it all gets kind of lost in the middle of this. Also, again, I think the internet is going to do a very good job of dissecting exactly what the moderators did last night. I think that there's going to be a montage. And if there isn't, then I'm calling on all our fans to make one right now, and I'll play it on the show tomorrow. A montage of every fact check. Yeah. Right? I mean, it was minutes of time that they were fact-checking Trump. I want a montage of every time they interrupted him. He'd be giving an answer, and they would say, I want to move on. David Muir would say, I want to move on. He was in the middle of giving an answer about Afghanistan.
Many other things.
Hammering Kamala Harris. Yeah. And David Muir would jump in and say, I want to move on. I have so many questions. Who gives a shit what you want?
Are you running for president?
Why are you an important person? What makes you an important human?
Did they fact check her once?
No. Zero times. Zero times. The most egregious thing on this was in one paragraph. She did the Very Fine People hoax. Mm-hmm. She did the bloodbath hoax.
The most ridiculous.
She did the stand back and stand by. You're in favor of the Proud Boys hoax. Which all three of those are nonsense. They didn't fact check that at all. And then when they did fact check him, they lied. So they said, well, the crime rates, Kamala Harris says the crime rates have gone down. And then David Muir repeats like a zombie, yes, the crime rates have gone down. And Trump says the crime rates haven't gone down. The FBI has not reported all the crime rates, which is true. He's actually correct about this. But because, again, when all the fact checks are directed at one side, the media are clearly attempting to drive a narrative. And the narrative is her narrative. Because her narrative at the beginning was, he's going to tell you so many lies. And they were going to be complicit in all of that. Now, again, he's going to have to go out in the campaign trail. He's going to have to prove it. Yeah, he's got his talking points. But there's 2 months left.
You're making like a huge point, though, that is it really is important. Part of this thing I was talking about before the debate about the way the impression sinks in over time, and it doesn't take that much time. It's not going to take 50 days, but it has to do with the internet now, which it didn't before. Before it was kind of you'd stick in your head, you'd think about it. Now there's going to be a constant drumbeat of these memes coming out, and I think a lot of them are going to be in Trump's favor, and I think that it's going to spread. People watch the news a different way that we haven't quite caught up with.
Can we say one thing about David Muir, by the way? It's not just what he did, but it's the attitude with which he did it.
Yes.
Sneering condescension, ashamed of himself to have to be in a room with Donald Trump, proud of himself to show everyone that he was willing to stand up constantly to Donald Trump. I mean, I'm not the most effusive in my Trump praise, I think, person at the Daily Wire. Their disdain for him, their scorn for him, they can't even hide it. It's not that they can't hide it. They don't even want to try to hide it. They want you to see it so that you know that they are good people, so that you know that they are
This is the thing that Trump is most right about. It's not disdain for him. It's disdain for us, and he's in the way. And it's the people who voted for him that they hate, and they've hated him for 50, 60 years.
And ironically, I think the media, it might end up that the media bailed him out, because if the story of the debate ultimately is that it was 3 against 1 and this was the most unfair debate we've ever seen, which it was, then that's automatically a win for Trump if that becomes the story. And it's up to, to your point, it's up to Republicans to make that the story, which shouldn't be too hard to do.
The thing that's very difficult, I think, about this moment is that because there are no more inflection points, the debates were held so early this year, right? You had the debate that knocked Biden out. That was in June. That never happened. You had a debate in June. That's crazy. And then this debate, normally would be debate number one, right? You'd now have two more that were coming, which would give the incumbent time. Trump's not even the incumbent, but they treated him as like the incumbent. Yeah. It would give him time to actually recover. This is going to be the only debate, which means we've now run out of inflection points in this election cycle, right? There are no organized inflection points.
Oh, you sweet summer.
No. What I mean by that is, notice how I changed planned inflection points. There will be exogenous events that occur between now and November, and nobody knows what they are. That's leaving the election to the winds of chance. Yeah. And that's why it felt like, I think, a little bit of a gut punch to a lot of us who want Trump to win, or Trump donors who organize fundraisers for him. You know, it feels like a gut punch because it's like, when the opportunity is in front of you, if you would just seize it, it's just right there. It's right there. Just do the thing.
So, speaking of opportunities, we have a great discount right now over at dailywire.com for new subscribers. If you use promo code FIGHT, you will get 47% off of your Daily Wire Plus membership. That gives you access to all of our content, our movies, documentaries, specials from Judged through the Divided States of Biden, Ben's wonderful documentary series from earlier this year, back when there was a guy running for president named Joe Biden. You get members-only content. And I think most importantly, you help us do the important work that we're doing. I believe it's important. Nothing perhaps more important than our coverage tonight, having our Daily Wire team at the debate so that they're able to bring real-time information to us. We'll be hearing from Cabot Phillips in only a few moments. And other things like bringing Matt's new documentary, Am I Racist?, to theaters, as we will be nationwide in over 1,500 screens on Friday. So please, if you're not a member, head over to dailywire.com. Use that promo code FIGHT to get your 47% discount. And if you are a member, head over and ask us questions, because we want to hear from our members throughout the broadcast. Beginning right now with this first question. For the entire group, what are your thoughts on Trump's I'm speaking moment?
I thought it was cute.
It was funny.
It was good. The I'll buy you a MAGA hat was good, I thought.
I'll buy you a MAGA hat was terrific.
Yeah.
Obviously, the I'm speaking moment was planned in advance because, that is Kamala's trick. If you remember from her vice president debate against Mike Pence, she constantly used that line to sort of show that he was beating up on a woman, I think was sort of her. And he just took that right away from her, which I thought was a pretty
He can't help but put the button on the joke.
Yeah, I thought that.
Right? Like, I'm speaking. Get it?
Yeah.
Sounds familiar.
It would have been obviously a lot more telling if the mics had been on. Yeah. Right? But part of the problem is that the mics are muted. So when she's talking, you can't hear what she's saying back to him. I actually think the mics being muted really helped her tonight, because she kept trying to slip in things. You could actually hear it off mic.
Yes.
Her saying things like over and over and over.
Ugly, yeah.
And by the way, the split screen for her, I don't think was particularly flattering. I mean, she's making a lot of faces tonight. The one thing that she has studiously avoided, I'll give her credit for this, the crazy laugh is gone. Have you seen the crazy laugh on the campaign trail?
Yeah.
That was like the most indicative tick of every time she was lying for her entire vice presidency.
Yeah.
And this is a woman who takes stage direction really well. Like, I mean, they told her, do not laugh ever again for the rest of your life.
And you will be president.
And you'll be president. And she's doing it. I will give that to her.
It did remind me a little bit of her mugging on the split screen. Reminded me a little bit of Al Gore. Remember when Al Gore did that to George W. Bush? And it was distracting and ugly. It was unattractive and unappealing as an emotional thing. Just watching that. I don't know how much.
I do wonder if they, you process these things sort of as you think about them. I do wonder how it appeared to people who, may not be in our financial position. What I mean by that is, if you're a blue-collar worker in the Rust Belt and you're watching Kamala Harris speaking about the vibes and about Donald Trump and January 6th and all this kind of stuff, and at no point does she ever acknowledge anywhere in the debate that there's any problem for anyone in America.
She laughed at inflation. She did put her little smile on it.
I do wonder if that is a point that needs to be drawn out by the Trump campaign, which is, you at no point assumed, you say, come to us if you're not okay. There are a lot of people in the country who are not okay. And if I were going to cut an ad based on that debate, I would say, Kamala Harris, use that clip of her saying, what I'm asking is, are you okay? And then say, America's not okay. America is not okay. And it's not okay because of you. But here's the thing. If you do want to be okay, then you need to be healthier. Let me talk about something else I'm passionate about aside from political debate. And that, of course, is fitness. I've been regularly exercising for years now, as you can see, from this chiseled, godlike physique. It's become a major part of my daily routine. You should see the shockingly defined biceps. And you will if you become a Daily Wire subscriber, by the way. Recently, though, I started to hit a wall in terms of the progress that I was seeing. I do work out a lot, but I realized there was a missing piece. the fact is I eat like an idiot. You can see me doing it literally on the set right now. I'm having like jelly beans and popcorn all night long as I nerve eat and all of the rest of this. You can exercise all you want, but if you eat like crap, if you don't have the information to eat right, you're making it way harder on yourself. So let me show you this device right here. This is called a Lumen. Okay? Now, what's cool about this thing right here, this Lumen, is that it's going to help you achieve your health and fitness goals. It's actually really cool. You breathe into it, it analyzes your metabolism. It lets you know if you're burning more fats or more carbs at any given time. You can do it in the morning, before or after workouts, whatever works for you. And then it designs a nutrition program for you. I used the Lumen right before the show. It told me I'm at a level 3, which means I'm equally burning fats and carbs. So for today, it recommends a lower carb meal plan because I haven't been able to exercise. So naturally, I immediately started, defying it, but I won't do that tomorrow. It even gave me a personalized nutrition plan for the day based on those measurements. Michael, on the other hand, might use Lumen to discover that 97% of the calories he burns come from cured Italian meats.
It's important information to have.
Yeah. Lumen is going to help you reach your fitness goals. It makes weight management a lot easier. It can help you improve your sleep and your energy levels. If you want to take the next step in improving your health, go to lumen.me/backstage. Get 15% off your Lumen. That is lumen.me/backstage for 15% off your purchase.
Can I say, on a completely non-political topic, you're in really good shape and nobody knows it.
I know, right?
It is one of the real.
Thank you.
It is truly one of the. It is truly one of the downsides of your religious
religion?
belief.
This is getting kind of gay now. I'm sorry.
Listen, it's only a little gay. There are other downsides of your religious beliefs, which we should talk about off air.
But the ever-present flaming. Listen, in any case, yeah.
But the fact that you people are modest really works against you because you actually do work out as much as anybody I know.
Yeah, no, I clock in at a hefty 11% body fat. Which,
I don't know
not
what that
bad.
means. I don't know if that was good or bad.
It means basically I'm an Olympian. That's what I'm telling you right now.
I am somewhat curious to learn more.
Are we
maybe I'll watch.
we
haven't even mentioned the fact that I can still walk. I don't know.
You're also incredibly physically fit.
Well, I work out a lot.
You work out a lot, and you walk uphill, straight uphill,
Yeah.
which is
We've been talking about doing
helpful.
a push-up contest for years now, so it's got to happen one of these days.
I mean, the other day we did the pull-up thing,
We did
right?
do a pull-up contest.
Pull-ups are hard, man. That's
Can we talk about how sexy I am? Why are we just talking
We
about
did do
Drew
a
and
pull-up
Ben?
contest.
Right. And
I will tell you
there were
this.
doubts.
Ben works out all the time. Drew works out all the time. And I used to work out with Michael Knowles. We did Krav Maga for about a year.
And you're
I have
crumbling in our seriously.
I have taken a punch from Michael Knowles.
Yep.
Have you really?
We
Yeah,
called it
and
Somehow
you
you
could- and you
Somehow
could-
you survived.
Who won the? Why was I not invited to the pull-up contest? First of all,
Oh, I mean, what's your top number?
what was yours? And
consecutive.
I'll tell you.
We actually have a pull-up bar right off of the set.
It would
that
have
was
been
put
better
up
than
by
the debate.
Pavel.
Way better than the debate. Yes. Well. you
Anyway,
know,
I'm just saying.
I appreciate that.
I'm like an old fat guy, but if I worked out as much as you, I would look into religions that involve less modesty. That's it. That's all I'm saying. Well, here's another question from our dailywire.com subscribers, people who have availed themselves perhaps of the 47% off discount using promo code FIGHT at dailywire.com. Do you think this is all baked into the cake at this point, or is it all just theater?
I think that it's like, I'll say 80% baked into the cake and 20 and maybe 20% not baked into the cake.
Yeah.
At this point, it's not 100%. The margins are not moving all that much. It's not as though Donald Trump dropped down to 40% or 35% because we were unhappy with his performance, or that Kamala Harris ramped up to like 53% in the polls. What may have happened is that Kamala Harris nationally went from like 46 to 48, and Donald Trump went from like 46 to 45. Right, like that.
It's also a turnout game this late in the race. People are already starting to vote, and so a lot of what's happening now is also just about motivation. Like the fact that we don't feel great today, and we may, to your point, we may feel better about all of this tomorrow. But you need to leave tonight with a good feeling. You need your base, not just your base, but you need all of your potential voters to actually do something about it and vote.
Right. I mean, I think that this is one of the problems that Trump has had, and this is true basically since 2016. In 2016, Republicans felt like this is a magical opportunity, not only to get Trump elected, but also to absolutely crush Hillary Clinton's dreams. I mean, that's really so much of 2016 was, we hate Hillary Clinton. She's been around for 20 plus years. She's the worst person in American politics. I will walk over broken glass to vote against that human being. And because Kamala Harris is kind of undefined, I think that there's a little bit less of that. And it's more like, how's your passion level on Donald Trump?
I think that's the biggest problem.
And so because of that, again, I think that he needs to ramp up the passion level for him or against her. And that's why, again, I just keep coming back to, when are we going to get the full takedown of Kamala Harris we so richly deserve? When is that going to happen?
He started it tonight.
I actually want to interrupt because I have something, there's actual breaking news, which rarely happens to us. Kamala Harris's campaign is calling for a second debate.
Of course they are, because they think she won.
Vice President Harris is ready for a second debate. We're looking for the American people, essentially, I'm paraphrasing, now quoting, should see a second debate in October.
And it's smart because they know he's going to say no.
Right.
So they just want to put him in the spot to say
I don't think
he will say no.
He's going to say no, because what's going to happen is that he's going to say where, and she's going to say NBC, and he's going to say, did you see those moderators? Are you out of your mind?
I don't think he'll say no.
I don't think he'll say
I think
no
he
either.
says yes.
Yeah.
Because, first of all, ABC is the most leftist biased network. They hired the former top propagandist for the Clinton White House to be their chief political anchor. So, and you saw those jokers tonight. So anything is going to be more moderate.
That's risky for her. I'm kind of surprised a little bit.
I'm a little surprised that she did, but I think he will take her.
I'm happy to hear it.
He might even get away with getting at least one person, like Brett Baer in there, which would be fine.
I don't think he should do another one. So he can't directly say no, but I think exactly what you just said. Here's what he could say. I'm not doing another one of those. There's no way. I'm not doing a 3-on-1 thing again. It's a setup. It's ridiculous. I'm not doing that. So we could do one on Fox, or we could do it somewhere that's.
What he should do is he should propose no moderators.
No moderators.
He should say no moderators. He should say there's a question. The question pops up on the screen. We each get to talk for 1 minute with a clock. And then we move on to the next question with rebuttals for 30 seconds each. Set a series of rules with no moderators, because the game now is a game of chicken, right? She's going to say, I offered you the debate. Why aren't you taking the debate? Right? She did this earlier. Yep. And then he's going to say, well, because your moderators suck and that was awful. And she's going to say, because you're chickening out, right, man? You're chickening out. Yep. And so what he needs to come back with is he needs to say, absolutely, no moderators, because you shouldn't have your aides in the corner helping you out.
Yeah. Another piece of breaking news right now, the biggest surprise perhaps of the political season, if you're, been living under a rock for the last 4 years, Taylor Swift just officially endorsed Kamala Harris.
Oh,
wow. No. But who did Travis endorse?
Yeah. It's a woman who's never gotten men right. She's
What I love about Taylor Swift is that she's always super late on everything.
Yeah.
Right? Have you ever seen the movie Pop Star Never Stop, Never Stopping? So there's a great number from Pop Star Never Stop, Never Stopping. It's an Andy Samberg Lonely Island film. It's pretty fantastic. It's wildly inappropriate, not appropriate for children at all. And but there's one song that is aptly titled "Not Gay," in which Andy Samberg explains why gay marriage is awesome, but that he personally is not gay in the song repeatedly. And the punchline is that everybody reacts to it and they're like, "Gay marriage became legal in the United States 5 years ago. Why are you even talking about this anymore?" And that is Taylor Swift in a nutshell. It's like she waits until it doesn't matter anymore, and then she signs
6
in
months,
chat.
all the media could talk about was whether or not she was going to endorse.
Yeah.
Well, and again, it's just bait, right? Because we're all going to say what we're going to say. Right now, what I'm about to say, which is, if you vote based on who Taylor Swift is voting for, you are one of the stupidest people alive.
I'm insulted now.
It is the stupidest thing in the world to say, who is this 36? She's the same age as my wife. My wife's a doctor with 4 kids. This lady's acting like she's a 17-year-old girl traipsing around singing songs about the latest dude she broke up with. And we're all supposed to take our voting advice from her? Okay, now you can clip that. You can put it on Media Matters.
The haters gonna hate.
The significance of the Taylor Swift endorsement is they're going to go for, well, can we have the largest political campaign rally of all time?
Right, vibes.
Because
vibes.
if it's really a Taylor Swift concert, they can get 1 million,
100,000 people,
right,
easily, yeah.
So that's the point.
Well, no more breaking news, but we do have news, original news coming from our very own Cabot Phillips, who is live in Philadelphia right now. Cabot, what do you have for us?
Well, the second the debate ended, the spin room behind me was flooded with surrogates. It was very different than the Atlanta debate. Democrat surrogates were rushing out. They were jubilant. I heard from a number of them. The campaign press secretary saying Harris was strong and optimistic. Trump was angry and weak. They said it was a clear-cut win. As you mentioned earlier, they won another debate in October. They said that they would even settle for multiple debates. The Democrats were very excited. Now, it's worth noting also, the moderators are getting a lot of discussion about the bias there. Sitting here in the room, I was with 1,000 reporters watching this debate. You could also feel the bias in the room. There were multiple moments throughout the evening where Trump begins to speak, and there was loud, uproarious laughter from large groups of members of the press. They were not even trying to hide the fact that they were having fun. They were mocking Trump pretty openly. worth pointing out that the moderators are not the only biased folks in the media. Now, the Trump campaign, they're not trying to spin this as a win. Guys, I talked to a number of them. I heard from a number of surrogates. I talked to Tom Cotton, Tim Scott, the campaign communications director, Brian Hughes. All of their talk was not necessarily on Donald Trump's performance. It was on the performance of the moderators. All of them used the language, this was a 3-on-1 debate. They're saying, however, that the American people can see through the fact that the media wants Kamala Harris elected and that the substance of the debate, whatever the performance of Trump or Kamala was, will actually be secondary to the poor performance from the moderators more broadly.
I will say that I've never felt better about Donald Trump's chances than hearing you say that they were openly mocking him in the spin room while watching the debate. The absolute disdain that the media class has for the American people it is not just the biggest story of tonight. It's probably the biggest story in the country and has been for a number of years. Mm-hmm. You can't talk about it enough. And so, may their hubris do for them what it did for them in 2016. Cabot, who else are you hoping to talk to tonight?
Sorry about that. I had a little bit of audio trouble there. J.D. Vance has just recently made an appearance. We're going to be talking to Tulsi Gabbard in a bit. But I did want to also point out the Trump surrogates, they were saying that once the American people actually get not real-time fact-checking, but fact-checking after the fact, they will realize just how often Kamala Harris was lying. For example, she said that she had never called for decriminalizing illegal border crossings. In 2019, she said it is wrong to suggest that undocumented immigrants are criminals. Being an undocumented immigrant is not a crime. Later, she said that she had never supported mandatory gun buybacks. In 2020, she said we have to have a buyback program. I support a mandatory buyback program. And perhaps most notably, the Trump campaign here in Pennsylvania was talking repeatedly about the importance of fracking. And they said Kamala did want to ban fracking. And we actually have a clip, despite her saying she never wanted to ban fracking. Here's a brief clip of her talking about that in the 2020 campaign.
Will you commit to implementing a federal ban on fracking your first day in office, adding the United States to the list of countries who have banned this devastating practice?
There's no question I'm in favor of banning fracking. So, yes, and starting with what we can do on day one around public lands, right? And then there has to be legislation. But yes, and this is something I've taken on in California. I have a history of working on this issue. And to your point, we have to just acknowledge that the residual impact of fracking is enormous in terms of the impact on the health and safety of communities.
So the Trump campaign saying they're having to do the job of the moderators who only showed interest in fact-checking Donald Trump. They are trying to blast that message out. Expect to hear some of those conflicting quotes of hers from 2020 versus last night in TV ads. They said they're going to have new ads up and running in the next week, especially here in Pennsylvania.
Hey, Cabot, it looks like Donald Trump just walked into the spin room behind you.
We're going to go get there right now if he is, and we'll get back in.
We'll check back in with you in just a few minutes. Good work. Yeah, they're in my ear saying, you see the people running behind Cabot. Donald Trump just walked into the spin room, which is a thing you do have to love about Donald Trump.
Yeah, he's fearless about this. Yeah.
The tenacity of the guy is unbelievable.
Yeah. Yes.
What you said there is one factor that can help Republicans. So there's a lot of talk about how, we were talking that you have to be excited to go to the ballot box.
Yes.
Or you have to be super pissed.
Yeah,
and if it turns out that they just keep spitting on everyone and just spitting on everyone, then it may be that you took off enough people and stuff like these debates don't really matter. Like in the end, it's just a giant pulsating middle finger. And so I think that's what Trump is going to be banking on going forward. Again, every single state, every single one is within margin of error right now. So trying to pretend that this is going to blow the race wide open or radically, seminally change where we are in the race. I mean, this race has been extremely stable, really, since the beginning of the race. And the only thing that changed was everybody realized that Joe Biden was senile. And then as soon as she was put in, it kind of went back to status quo ante from September, October of last year. So, I'm not sure.
There's a big difference, too, between the fact checks and the fact checks of the fact checks now compared to 2012. I remember 2012, I was watching that debate. Romney said, Obama, you did not refer to the Benghazi attack as a terror attack for a day or two or several days after. And Candy Crowley lied and said, yes, he did. And then way after the debate was over, at the end of the broadcast, she said, oh, by the way, I got it wrong. And everyone had tuned out at that point.
That's right.
Because everyone in 2012 was watching that debate on TV, myself included. Now, my father doesn't always watch this stuff on TV. People are watching this on the internet. The media landscape is very different than it was 12 years ago. And so, sure, the real-time fact checks were frustrating. We were going to pull our hair out here. But when you get those montages of all the fact checks, and then what Cabot was talking about, the fact check of the fact check. Kamala says, I never said that, spliced with, on all of our shows probably tomorrow, spliced with Kamala saying that. I don't know. That, then to Drew's point, the debate settling in the days afterward, I'm not sure that this is so great for Kamala. I'm not sure that this is so bad for Trump.
You know, the thing you said before is really important, because if I have a concern, it is that the vibes for Harris are very powerful. The enthusiasm for her is very powerful because she's not Joe Biden, because she's a fresh coat of paint. And Trump has been around a long time now. He was a breath of fresh air when he started. We all were like shocked by him. We didn't see him coming. It was like a train just bowling over the opposition. But anger is also a kind of enthusiasm. And I think, you know, if you're not angry at a media complex that is so huge, so dominant, so powerful, that hates your guts, if you're not angry about that, you're just not paying any attention at all. And getting back to the fact that, look, Democrats aren't going to change their vote, Republicans aren't going to change their vote, it's all in the hands of independents. At some point, some of these independents have got to be looking at this and saying, you know, I'm tired of being hated. That's what gave Trump his power in the first place. People are tired. This is not 10 years, 20 years. This is 60 years of being told their country sucks, their religion sucks, they're racist, their religion, everything about them is bad. People got ticked off, and Trump was a gigantic middle finger to all those people. They're still here. They're still saying the same stuff. Trump has gotten, we've gotten used to him. He's lost that kind of shock that he had before. But I don't know if the anger wears off when you're being treated like these people treat us.
You know, the way that you could tell the moderators were truly, horrifically awful tonight. And there were a million ways. What's the number one issue in the country right now? Clearly, like with a bullet, inflation.
Yeah.
Number one issue. Not one question tonight. Not one question on inflation. We got several minutes on Trump's tariff policy, his proposal for tariffs. The implication, of course, being that that's going to be inflationary policy. At no point did they go to Kamala Harris and say, you presided over the worst 40-year inflation spiral that we've seen. So what's the deal? Instead, they went to Trump's tariff policy. Then they asked her about Trump's tariff policy, and then he responded to her responding, which gave her a chance to respond. And again, I think that was a mistake by him, because I think he kept taking the bait. She would respond to what he was saying,
right.
And then instead of him letting it go and letting them move on to a topic that was maybe better for him than, say, tariffs, he would fall in love with the topic, and then he just had to respond. He had to go. But again, the questions, I am absolutely bewildered and shocked at those questions. They were truly egregious. And I agree with you that I think that the takeaway is going to be you can never trust the media again.
Yep.
Media trust is at all-time lows. Whether Trump can translate that into, votes for him is another question. But I think that for future election cycles, Joe Biden killed the election debate process, right? He killed the presidential commission. And so now I think that if you're a Republican, you should never again walk into a debate that is organized by your opponents. They never again. And in fact,
I don't think I'm going to moderators at all.
And if you are going to have moderators, I'm going to pose the Jewish solution to moderators. There's like an actual Jewish law solution when you have to form like a court. What you do is you pick one, I pick one, they pick one. Right? That's the way that you end up actually forming a court. That seems like a pretty good way if you're going to have moderators at all. You can have three, and you have one from my side, one from your side, and then the two of those people pick the person in the middle. That seems like a better way of doing it than we currently are. I do want to say something.
They pick one, they pick one, and they pick another one.
Yeah, exactly.
That's the current way.
I am excited to announce something tonight. I'm not excited about a lot what happened in the debate, but I'm very excited. We do have a new sponsor joining us, which is just awesome. And this sponsor is working with your business to make it more efficient. So let's talk about something that's really cool, that's futuristic, that's going to save your business tons of time and money. I'm talking about artificial intelligence. If you haven't done any experimenting with AI, it is unbelievable. I mean, ChatGPT is unbelievable, and Grok is unbelievable. All these AIs are incredible. They're super efficient. They make your work a lot easier. If your business is ignoring it, it's missing out. This might be the most important new technology literally ever, because it's making intelligence, like human intelligence, available to everyone at incredibly rapid rates. It is storming every industry. Literally billions of dollars are being invested. You need to buckle up. The problem is AI needs a ton of speed and processing power. So how can your business compete without cost spiraling out of control? It's time to upgrade to the next generation of the cloud. I'm talking about Oracle Cloud Infrastructure, or OCI. OCI is a single platform for your infrastructure, database, application development, and AI needs. OCI has 4 to 8 times the bandwidth of other clouds, offers one consistent price instead of variable regional pricing. And of course, nobody does data better than Oracle, best in the business. So now you can train your AI models at twice the speed and less than half the cost of other clouds. If you're not using AI for your business, You really should be, or you're going to fall behind your competitors. If you want to do more and spend less, like Uber, 8x8, Databricks Mosaic, take a free test drive of OCI at oracle.com/Shapiro. Honestly, it's a must-do for your business. Oracle.com/Shapiro. That's oracle.com/Shapiro. Don't let the left outpace you in the AI race. Get on OCI today.
You know, Knowles and I had a conversation. I don't think you'll mind my saying this, where you mentioned the fact that you had checked on the price of eggs, that what you were spending on eggs.
Because my wife is making me spend $11 for eggs.
And you were shocked. And I said, the thing is, the fact that you had to check shows what the media, and that's us, is like. We have to check to see what we're paying for eggs. If you don't have the kind of money that people in the media have, you don't have to check what you're paying for eggs. Right. You know when you walk in what you're paying for eggs and what it's taking away from all your other expenses. And that's the gap. That's the big gap. That's why people don't see what a disastrous administration this has been in the press, and why Trump is the first president who narrowed the gap between rich and poor, narrowed the gap between black and white. He never talks about it. He probably doesn't even know it. But he's the first guy to do that in 60 years.
And he is the first president in my lifetime to have his finger on the pulse of the price of a Fabergé egg. He has two on his airplane.
One issue that, right on this point, Drew, that didn't come up tonight, and it's a scandal it didn't come up, pertains to mass migration, which should have been the lion's share of the debate, and the moderators tried to gloss over that. But what especially they could have focused on was the drug crisis and fentanyl deaths, because this is something that actually does affect people, even in the media, even in the fancy clubs, who know somebody, or at least know somebody who knows somebody who has died of a fentanyl overdose. And certainly people in the forgotten parts of the country know a lot of people who have experienced that. There was a report that came out just today that Kamala, while running in 2020, signed a candidate questionnaire calling for the decriminalization of fentanyl.
Wow.
Not marijuana, not cocaine, not fentanyl.
Yeah.
And just this past year, what was it, 75,000 or thereabouts Americans died of fentanyl overdoses. Many, many more of drug overdoses overall. The numbers are ticking up again.
I don't think you should categorize fentanyl as an overdose.
It's a poison.
Yeah. It's a poison. It's a poison. Yes.
Not an overdose.
And so the numbers are ticking up again. This is the poisoning, the permitted, negligent, and intentional killing of Americans doesn't come up.
But here's the thing. In the end, the magical power that Donald Trump has above all else, and this has been true since 2015, is he is a camera magnet, right? Wherever he goes, the cameras follow him. And what that means is that the only person who can really prosecute the case is going to have to be Donald Trump. It cannot be J.D. Vance. It can't. Right. I mean, we're all watching J.D., and J.D.'s doing a great job in a lot of these interviews. You watch him in these rallies. He's doing media, and it doesn't even make a dent. And the reason it doesn't make a dent is because the cameras can just ignore J.D. Vance. Unless he's saying something about Tucker Carlson and his friendly relations with Tucker or something, in which case they can use it against J.D. They're not going to talk about J.D. Vance. He's just not going to break through. The thing that Trump had that I think is the underrated superpower of Donald Trump is that he had broken through before he was ever running, right? He was one of the most famous people in the country before he ever declared for the presidency. And because of that, it meant that he had layers of insulation against whatever the media could throw at him, because everybody already had a preconceived notion of who Donald Trump was. He still has the capacity to do that, but it means that no surrogate can do the thing. Surrogates can do the thing for Kamala. She can send surrogates out there because she's a nothing. She's a nevis. She really is. She's just an empty suit. She's a nevis. She's nothing. And what that means is that she can send out surrogates to go change her positions willy-nilly, or go on the morning shows with Morning Joe and jabber about what a vibes candidate she is. And she can go into spice shops and hug people, and that'll be her entire campaign. No one on the right can do the job for him, which means the challenge is his. And so in a very singular way, this election will be won or lost by Donald Trump. Either he is going to singularly, in his own personage, prosecute the case against Kamala Harris, or it ain't going to get prosecuted. Yeah. Because the other problem that you got is that he can toss hundreds of millions of dollars into TV ads. And the question is, who watches local TV anymore? Seriously, this is a major problem. Like, you can throw that money down a rat hole, but the reality is the amount of money that's spent on local TV in, say, Pennsylvania on these TV ads, what's the ROI on that? Yep. It's not as easy to reach people as it once was, and the internet is super fragmentary. And so, their ballot harvesting operation better be top-notch. Yep. Their get-out-the-vote operation better be top-notch. I mean, let's start putting the pressure inside, for those of us who want him to win. Okay, it's time to start actually putting the pressure where the pressure needs to be for him to win. And in order for him to win, we can pressure the media. We always do that, and we should. That should not let up. The pressure should be on us from Harris. We'll do our job, right? That's our job. Our job is to keep the pressure on them. But the only people who can run the get out the vote effort are the people running the get out the vote effort. You can't do it. I can't do it. Nope, none of us can do that. The get out the vote effort needs to be top notch. No excuses. Donald Trump needs to personally prosecute the case. No excuses. Because in the end, ain't going to be excuses. Because if she's elected, she's going to wreck the country. She really will.
It's actually one of the questions from one of our dailywire.com subscribers is, will the VP debate have a significant impact? And it sounds like you're saying no.
Nope. Not one iota. Does anybody remember Kamala Harris from the Mike Pence debate? They remember the
She
fly.
was talking.
They remember the fly in that debate more than they remember more than they remember
He was
Kamala.
great on the fly.
The fly was one of the big stars of our modern politics.
I mean, J.D. Vance will do very, very well.
He'll do great.
He'll be spectacular, and it won't matter at all.
Not one iota. Not one iota. The one thing that'll be hard for him now is that Tucker has created this issue for him, right? I mean, Tim Walz will for sure hit him on his friendship with Tucker because Tucker had this schmuck pseudo-historian on who did this dumb routine about how Churchill was the villain in the Second World War. And that's just that's just an easy hit for Tim Walz. He'll go out of his way to do it. It was a dumb move by Tucker. It was damaging to the Republican cause for whatever that matters. And JD will be asked about that without a doubt during that VP debate. Is that going to make any difference? Not really. He's the VP candidate. Who cares?
Yeah. Another question from a dailywire.com subscriber, and you can become a subscriber at dailywire.com using promo code FIGHT for 47% off. That's 47 for 47. Obviously, we want Donald Trump to be the 47th president. Simple yes or no from the entire group. Do you think that the people of the United States actually believe her lies?
What lies? They believe she wants to kill babies. She wants to kill babies. They believe that she'll adjust her policies based on whatever's convenient. She will do that. I don't think she cares that much about fracking. I think she just says what she thinks she needs to say.
So power.
Yeah, and so she says that, they believe it, and they're all right, I guess.
I think that they don't believe her lies because they don't care. What I would say is that I think the Democrats, and right now I see it with like Mark Cuban, for example, I think that a lot of Democrats have the same feeling about her that for a long time Republicans had about Trump, which was take him seriously but not literally, right? So they're taking her vibes seriously, and her vibe is, I'm not Donald Trump. I'm a lefty. I'm a typical lefty. I'm going to do exactly what a typical lefty does. Doesn't matter what she says. I mean, they openly say this, right? I mean, they'll go on TV and they'll be like, sure, she's lying about all of her positions, but she does have to get... Bernie literally said this weekend, right? Bernie went on national TV.
She's being pragmatic.
Right. She's changing all of her positions. She's being pragmatic, and that's what she should do. As a good Marxist, she should lie about everything, and then once she's elected, she can execute the kulaks. Right? Like, that's the...
I mean, a lot of voters, let's face it, are NPCs. They're non-playable characters.
Yeah.
And in some ways that's kind of healthy. They grew up in the Democrat or the Republican Party. You stick to your family. You stick to the people around you. That's kind of the way it should be in a country that's not on the brink of collapse like this one. But normally, that's not a bad thing. Yeah. But the people who decide the election because of that are the playable characters. And I think a lot of the playable characters will not believe her lies.
I do wonder if the people in the middle are just exhausted. I'll bet you the voter turnout for people who are independents is like zero. Yeah. Seriously, because it like...
I mean, independent voters.
Independent voters. Yeah. Like, because if you're a Democrat, you're jazzed because Kamala and vibes and all that. And if you're a Trump voter, you're jazzed because you got to stop Kamala and vibes and all that. If you're an independent, you're like, when does all this shit just end? Like, seriously. Like, I think that was... That has been the vibe in a couple of elections straight, where it's like Americans are just like, can we just be left alone? Like a little normality. Yeah. And so,
I think that is what people vote for.
I agree, and that's kind of why I was hoping that there would be a little more normality from President Trump tonight.
In a way, if Kamala goes on to be president, the historic thing about this debate, retrospectively, will be that it's a bit like Bill Clinton's "the era of big government is over" moment. That she really ran as the government should leave you alone candidate tonight, which is, of course, absurd because she is the vice president.
Trump was right about this, right? He said, "I'm buy you a MAGA hat."
That's right. It's an amazing pivot that at least says that some of our actual policy preferences do resonate with the American people. We've stopped advocating for some of the government should leave you alone positions. Yeah. That's I think become a weak spot for conservatives in the last 6 or 8 years. And I think Kamala is showing us that does still
She's running to the right. She's running to the right.
Well, that coalition that you're describing, Jeremy, which is that Reagan / sort of Bill Clinton / sort of Tony Blair / sort of Dave Cameron. It's not even just in America. It's in the UK too. We kind of mock it now as passé and neoliberal and squishy, and it is all of those things. It also does still seem to kind of resonate with the voters.
Because we use words like neoliberal, and what most people just hear when they hear neoliberal is, I have no idea what you're talking about. Do you mean that you're going to leave me alone and I'll just be able to go to the supermarket and things will be cheap, or what? Like, what do you mean? Like, seriously, you think most people have any idea what the hell the word neoliberal means?
No.
People who use the word neoliberal have no idea what the word neoliberal
means. I mean, we know what it means, and we probably don't like a lot of it. We don't like, just totally laissez-faire cultural hands on the, we don't want to have much more migration. We don't want to have some weak middle ground where we kill some babies and not other babies. We don't want to give up the meaning of marriage. I don't like it. I would like a more coherently conservative policy, and I'm sure Bernie and Comrade Kamala in her heart of hearts wants a more leftist policy. But a lot of those voters that we're trying to reach, they don't have the most coherent and consistent political philosophy, and if you can appeal to them, that can be very powerful.
I wanted to just follow up one thing, Ben. You said that I think your Bernie Sanders impression is your best one.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate that.
I just,
my
you got
Obama
a few that are kind of weak, but that one was
Thank
good.
you. My Trump is not great. My Obama is quality.
You have a good Obama. Kamala Harris has a good black woman. I heard her break it out.
I don't think you're the Indian one.
Yeah.
Are you sure it's good? I don't think it's that good.
I did love Trump's answer on that. If she wants to be black, she can be black. And if she doesn't want to be black, she doesn't have to be black. Does it really matter?
It actually was kind of a sophisticated answer.
It was.
They just weren't letting him have it.
Okay.
Okay, from dailywire.com subscriber, this one for Ben. Do you think the Jewish men and women around our country fall for the lie that she loves Israel?
Okay, it's time for my answer. You ready for this?
Let's go.
Here we go. Most Jews are not Jewish. Okay, let me explain this thing about Jews. Whenever you see a poll of Jews, what you mean are people who identify as Jews, and Jews, unlike other groups, people who identify as Jews, they're not doing so religiously. If you poll people like, are you Catholic? Typically, the people who say they are Catholic, like they go to church, like they actually pay attention to the things the Pope says.
They were at least baptized.
They probably don't go to church.
Okay. They take the religion seriously enough that when they are not Catholic anymore, they call themselves lapsed Catholics or atheists. Yeah. Okay, Jews don't do that. So for Jews, they'll be like full non-compliant, God is stupid, like full-on atheistic, anti-Israel kooks. But for those Jews, the reason they say Jew is because what they mean is intersectionally not white. Right, and that is a serious share of like the American Jewish population who identifies as Jewish because it means that they're not part of the white Borg, and also we're not part of the like old anti-Semitic, white people in country clubs thing, right? And so I always differentiate between Jews who care about Jewishness and people who don't care about Jewishness. So for those of us who actually have a dog in the being Jewish fight, we're going to vote like 110% for Donald Trump. Okay, my synagogue, I can name them. I think there's 1 to 2. This is a synagogue of 400 families. There may be 1 to 2 Kamala Harris supporters, maybe. Okay, and that's fairly consistent around the Orthodox community. Like we all see through it. I mean, we all know it. If you go down to Florida, every Trump fundraiser is filled with people with yarmulkes, like every single one. There's a reason for that. But one of the great, and by the way, you can tell us in the polls. There's a poll, and it was a Pew poll came out recently showing what various religious denominations think of people of other religious denominations. And so every religious denomination says they don't like atheism, except the Jews who are pro-19, they're plus 19 on atheism. Why? Because it turns out that a huge number of people who identify as Jews are in fact atheists, right? Yeah. And so I think it's important to make that distinction because people get caught up in the like Jews as solidarity club for people who all think alike. And it's like, well, no, they're the ones of us who actually take the Bible seriously and care deeply about what happens to Israel and think Kamala Harris is awful on Israel. Awful. Her answer tonight was sheer, absolute, unmitigated trash. Absolute trash. If she says one more, she keeps saying over and over, what we're searching for is an end to the conflict in which there is a hostage deal and all the hostages are freed and Israel is still safe. And also there will be a two-state solution and unicorns will fart energy. And like, what are you talking about? You're talking about negotiating with a terrorist entity to maintain its dominance of a portion of the land in order so that you can then give them a state and then peace will break out. Like it's awful. And Tim Walsh, by the way, is way worse than Kamala on this. It's an awful ticket on Israel. A truly awful ticket.
I want to know, on the right, we've got these clowns who are anti-Semitic and they're always coming after me and yelling terrible things. And I want to know, if Jews are so bad for America, why is it the people who say death to America want to kill the Jews? I've never quite understood that. Just asking questions.
One of them, I forget, it was some picture of you, Drew, and one of them was making some argument about how terrible you are. But it was being presented as very objective. But then I looked at the picture, I said, wait, what's that? And they drew a little yarmulke on your bald head.
They didn't.
No,
it was just there?
No.
I didn't know. I had no idea.
Listen, we all saw the picture. It was from Backstage Live.
Okay.
And it's all of us sitting in this format, Drew right there, and he for the life of me is wearing a yarmulke. Yeah. And Drew and I had a conversation about this a few days ago over dinner. He said, "Did you see the thing where they put that yarmulke on my head?" I mean, it's kind of funny. They didn't put the yarmulke on his head.
Was that just providence?
The geniuses at the Daily Wire, where I work, put a Daily Wire, a DW watermark on the video that is a translucent black circle. And it just happened that in that exact... And this is where the anti-Semites are hilarious. I wish it wasn't true. The Groypers are funny as hell.
Yeah, they're really-
They're evil.
Evil and hate are fine. It can be funny, yeah.
They believe in a demonic ideology, but they are hilarious. And they found the one frame of the whole show where the watermark landed on Drew's head.
Dude, they're super funny. They made a Hispanic gay guy the leader of their movement.
From now on, I'm wearing this outside my shirt.
Like a bishop.
Now I look like a bishop.
And when you're a bishop, you actually get to wear
I get to wear the exactly. Then I get the yarmulke.
Yeah, you come full circle. From another DailyWire.com subscriber, what do we do? We should be serious, but this is actually I think, on the hearts and minds of a lot of people. What do we do if Kamala wins? This genuinely feels like we're on the verge of losing the country if the left takes the White House and Congress. So how do we stay calm in the event that Trump loses?
You know, I was at a fundraiser for Republicans in Virginia the other day, and this was on all of their minds. It was, what do we do? First of all, they may not believe that he lost if he did lose, but I think there's obviously a possibility that he could lose. And I just think, this is the kind of country where things go a lot slower than people want them to go, hopefully. And it really just depends on what happens to the Congress, because we could lose the White House but hold Congress and hold the Senate and win the Senate. So there's a lot of different outcomes, and I think not panicking would be a good idea. I got asked once recently, somebody on one of the All Access shows, should we revolt? Should we get our guns? And I thought, could you volunteer to serve at a polling place first before you go for your guns? I think there are a lot of things to do to be active in American politics that still work, that are still there, that we should start to take advantage of.
Also, this election is very, very important. They're all really important. You're not going to win every election from now until forever.
Right.
Like, you are going to lose sometimes, no matter what. That's just a reality. So that's all kind of baked into the cake of the way the system works. So the way I look at it is, it'll be terrible if she wins, and if they win everything, which I don't think will happen, even worse. Really devastating consequences. But what do we do? What do we give up and move? Where are you going to move to?
Right.
You get ready for 2028. You get ready for the midterms. You focus on your own family, your own community. You keep living and fighting.
Donald Trump would say, fight, fight, fight.
Americans, I feel we have a ton of really great virtues and particular skills. But one area that we lack in is we sometimes lack in historical sense, because we're a young country and we were founded in a unique way that had all these ramifications for the rest of the world, and we kind of forget how history works. I just happened, coincidentally, providentially, to give this lecture on my favorite Italian poet, Dante. It was specifically on...
Who?
I don't know if you heard of him. He's this guy...
Tell me all about him.
Well,
2 hours.
Actually...
Well, recite his cantos.
You can get that if you listen to my lecture on the ISI YouTube channel. But it was on his politics, because this is a guy who rose to the highest level of the Florentine government and then immediately lost everything. The Pope attacked him, killed his friend, the Pope's army guys, killed his friends,
Feel you, Dante.
Took his property, sent him out of his city. He never returned. Civil war was the recurring theme in his political life. And Dante had to make sense of this. And he's not the only one. Great political thinkers have had to make sense of this, going back to Boethius and before that. If you are Christian, though, you believe that there is a meaning to history. You believe that there's a beginning to the story, the creation. You believe there's a turning point, which is the incarnation. And you believe there's an end. And we know how the story ends if you're a Christian. You believe that this world, this fallen world of politics, is subject to principalities and power and spiritual wickedness in high places. You believe also that rulers are here for our own good, and that a civil order and justice and law is here for our own good, and we need to do our very best to establish those conditions for justice. But it's going to be really unpleasant a lot of the time. And I fear sometimes, because we have a short revolutionary view of history, we think that it's all going to be roses.
And it's weird that Christians who have a God who was crucified by the religious people, the political people, by the crowd,
of the whole
by his
world.
friends, that they believe that everything's going to come up roses.
Yeah.
That's not the way it works.
Well, I think that on a very practical level, there are a few things. One, the Senate matters an awful lot.
Yeah.
And people who are not paying attention to the Senate races, bad mistake.
Yeah.
Right now, the Republicans basically have guaranteed 50 seats because of Jim Justice in West Virginia. They're very likely to win the seat in Montana where Tim Sheehy appears to be running away with that race. That means 51, which is great. You're going to need a little bit more than that because you want some sort of cushion, because we've had situations in the recent past, actually, where Republicans had a 51-vote majority and you get one person to peel off and join the Democrats in a complete... Jim Jeffords did this when George W. Bush was president, actually. And you could see something like that. You really want more than that. I, on a personal level, have actually been doing something I've never done before, which I'm actually going out and actively campaigning with a series of Senate candidates in swing states. I already went and campaigned with Captain Sam Brown over in Nevada, who's a wonderful person and a real American hero. I'm going to be campaigning in Pennsylvania with Dave McCormick. I'm going to be hopefully campaigning with Eric Hovde in Wisconsin and Mike Rogers in Michigan and with Bernie Moreno in Ohio. Like, that's my hope. I want to go campaign with all those people. And if you can, you should go work for those Senate candidates, because the worst thing would be if the Democrats get a triumvirate here. If they get all three, if they get Congress and Senate and the presidency, they will do damage that is in fact permanent in nature. They will add 2 states to the Senate of the United States and stack it with another 4 Democratic senators, making their majority near permanent. They will kill the filibuster. They will make changes to the actual system of American government that are incredibly dangerous. And so the question becomes, okay, let's say all that happens, then what? And then the answer becomes what always was the case, which is you're going to see individual states that just refuse to take the mandates of the federal government.
Right.
That's going to be the next step. And you're already seeing, by the way, when the left protests this, it's like, well, you guys have already done this. It's called the sanctuary state. You do it all the time, right? You did this with regard to marijuana enforcement. Like, you guys are constantly ignoring laws that you don't think ought to apply to you. And so you'll just see that from the right. The right will just say, listen, you want to come enforce your garbage tax law? You come down here and try it. Like, see how it goes for you. You're already seeing this with the immigration laws in Texas and what Governor Abbott has been doing down there. So that'll be the next step. The nice thing about the United States, it's really big. It's really decentralized. States do have an enormous amount of power. And I think that I was a lot more pessimistic about these sorts of solutions when I was living in a blue state. When I was living in California, it's like, oh my God, there's no place to go. And then it turns out there are, in fact, a lot of places to go. You can take your whole company to Tennessee. You can move down to Florida, right? And so that will give you a base from which to fight back using the mechanisms of the system. So the thing that I hate is when people say, this is the last election. If we lose this election, it's all over. And invariably, the people who are telling you this are totally lying.
There's never a last election until the end of the world.
You know, it's a thing that I noticed? I noticed that literally everyone who said that if Biden won in 2020, it would be the last election and everything didn't matter and the world would end, they all went on the air that after the election, they were still on the air. It was super weird. Yeah. None of them quit their jobs and decided to go to farming. Right? Like, literally not one of them. It was amazing. Conservatives say this in the same way that libs say that if a conservative is elected, they're going to move to Canada.
That's right.
Right.
You don't know the future. No one knows the future. If Kamala Harris wins, we certainly know it will be bad. There will be policies that make life worse in the country. There will be policies that damage particularly our values. It's possible that there will be policies, Ben, to your point, that actually reorder how the government works in this country. That could certainly happen. That much is certain. It will be bad from a policy perspective if Kamala Harris wins. Beyond that, the extent to which it will be difficult is completely unknown. It could certainly be the case that Donald Trump losing the presidency in 2024 could be the beginning of something really good in the country. A reorientation. You know, Donald Trump has been, this is our 3rd presidential election where we've marched into battle behind Donald Trump. If he loses and even if they cheat, his job is to ascend the presidency. If he fails to ascend the presidency, if he loses, then it will be a good thing not to follow him into a 4th presidential election. Is it possible? You say there's always a next election. To the extent that you mean history continues, of course that's true. Yeah. Maybe there's not a next election. Right. I mean, systems of governments completely change.
They're talking about gutting the court.
We could go into a Soviet-style Great Terror where we spend 50 years under a dark cloud. The worst thing can happen. I don't think that it's likely that it will happen. I think that's the smallest % chance of what the outcome could be. But it's possible. It's possible that Donald Trump losing could be the beginning of something very good that happens. You can't be cavalier about that because what we know for a fact is that bad policies will happen, and you don't lose by you don't win by losing.
Yeah.
It may be the case that you accidentally do every now and then win by losing, but as we say often, luck is a bad business model.
Right. Sometimes you lose with Goldwater in '64, and then you get Reagan in '80. But there's an awful long 16-year period between
That's right,
and a revolutionary period.
That's right, and you can't be so cavalier
It's like
as to
80s
not
for
do your
sure.
job
Yeah,
in the moment.
exactly.
Our job in the moment is to support Donald Trump for president. Our job in the moment is to do everything within our power to try to stop the left from having the White House for 4 more years.
Yep.
Should that fail, though, it is important to remember that at the extremes, things can be very bad.
Yeah.
Most likely what will happen is we'll all get back up, we'll all go back to work, we'll all have to start reorienting, we'll have to start adapting as we always do as human beings. We'll have to find a way, Matt, to your point, to focus on our family, to focus on our faith, to focus on the smallest units of government, which in the end are the foundational units of government. We'll have to remember to be optimistic, not because the future is promised to be good, the future might be very bad, but because belief in God is a fundamentally optimistic act. And we'll have to figure out where the fight is and go fight it.
And we have to make more movies like Matt so that we can change people's minds. And change
That's right. The battle is ultimately a cultural
It's always a culture
battle. You know, a lot of people are very upset about abortion. I'll end the night with this. People are very upset about the fact that the abortion situation in the country has changed. We didn't have a plan for what would happen after Roe v. Wade.
Or for when the abortion pill became the chief mechanism of abortion.
That's right. And now that we're on the other side of both of those events in rapid succession, abortion is a much more complex political issue. It's not a more complex moral issue. The moral issue hasn't changed at all. Abortion is a true horror, a true blight. But the political situation has changed dramatically. It used to be the case that you could have a politically absolutist view of abortion, which is not the same as a morally absolutist view. I have a morally absolutist view of abortion. But politics only allowed us to have an absolutist political view because of Roe. And what I mean by that is we could elect people who were proponents of abortion, like Donald Trump. People who've been pro-choice their entire life.
Before he ran.
Like Donald Trump. But it didn't matter because in a situation with Roe v. Wade, as long as he opposed Roe v. Wade, this one concept, then he was pro-life. And now on the other side, we have this complicated moment where the very person who secured us the greatest pro-life victory of all time now isn't morally advocating positions that make the pro-life community happy. But that's the nature of the new political reality. And people want to know, how do we win? How do we win now? Do we get rid of the people who don't have the absolutist moral view that we have? You know, do we have to, is it better to lose elections standing for what's right? And those are, it's easy to kind of be glib about that. Those can be, in certain moments, very complex questions. There will be times where we may have to choose to lose political power.
And even Trump is making this point. Where he's
That's right.
Got to win elections, guys. Just let me go, you know.
But the ultimate point is this. It took half a century to overturn Roe. It will now take half a century to fight the next battle for abortion, which is, I believe, fundamentally a cultural battle. We actually have to change the way people relate to the issue of life, which is different than changing the way that they deal with the issue of the Supreme Court vis-a-vis Roe v. Wade. Yeah. We figured out how to fight that battle. We won it. We're going to have to figure out how to fight this battle and win it. Some battles can't be won immediately. And so whatever comes of this election, we're going to have to steel ourselves for the fact that every day that we're alive on this earth, we have to fight for our values. Yeah. That fight will never, that fight changes from moment.
Which is why panic is always the wrong thing.
Panic is always
the wrong thing. We have to play the long game. We have to play the long game.
That's right. And it's why Matt's movie matters, because he's fighting in the cultural sphere. This movie, Am I Racist, comes out in theaters on Friday, nationwide. If you looked for tickets maybe 3 weeks ago and it wasn't playing near you, we're up to 1,500 screens, starting at only 200 4 weeks ago. So if you checked the internet and the movie wasn't playing near you 3 weeks ago, it probably is playing near you today. If you look today and it's not playing near you, it almost certainly will be tomorrow. The movie is now in wide national release, and the movie matters so much. And it matters because it isn't a classic documentary. It is a true culturally relevant piece of entertainment content that uses tools cultivated by the left when they weren't in hegemonic power. Tools like mockery, tools like trolling, tools that people like Sacha Baron Cohen or Stephen Colbert or early Jon Stewart really pioneered. And Matt is the first and only person in our movement to figure out how to effectively turn those tools now that they're the ones in power and we're the ones outside of power. He's figured out how to use those tools to the same great effect that they were using them 20 years ago. And for that reason alone, you must go see this film.
Agreed.
And because the culture is where we have to fight the fight. So go to amiracist.com, grab your tickets, head over to dailywire.com if you're not a subscriber. Promo code FIGHT gets you 47% off of your subscription, which is how you can support all of the work that we're doing and engage with all of our wonderful content. If you haven't registered to vote, go register. If you haven't volunteered at your polling place, go volunteer at your polling place. If you haven't talked somebody else into going to vote, talk them into going to vote. Put one foot in front of the other. Keep doing the work. Lift up thine eyes. Fix them on the things that we have been promised, and don't worry so much about the things that we haven't. And just know that what a beautiful thing that we get to live and we get to breathe and we get to fight for our values. The fight changes, the values don't. Thank you guys for joining us tonight. We hope to see you next time.